Okay, so with this very first module of rest assured, first we are going to understand that what is a web service or what is an API. You know, before directly jumping to rest assured, as we already know that it's a tool that is used to test these web services or the API, we should be aware about these terms clearly. Also, we are going to talk about that what is an XML, what is an JSON, and about the different tools, right? Like rest assured is not a standalone tool that is used in the industry for the API testing. There is this SOAP UI, we have Postman, right? So all about it. So before directly jumping to the rest assured, it's very important for us to understand all of these first. Okay, so I'm going to start with the very basics. That first, what is basically an API or a web service? So I'm going to show you an example. I'll just do an illustration that will give you clarity upon this topic. Okay, so we all aware about this website makemytrip.com, very famous in India, used to book hotels or flights. Okay, or you can take it example as any booking engine, right? Like any website that does booking, like the Airbnb, okay, or the booking.com. So suppose this is a website, I'm just taking an example, let's say makemytrip.com. On this particular website there are different users, right? Different users come to this website with their different needs. Some wants to book in hotel, some wants to book in flight. And if I particularly talk about flight, every user comes with different requirement, right? Some wants to go from certain location to some other location, right? Where other want to book flight from other locations, right? So suppose these are different users that comes on the Make My Trip. Okay, so here we go. So suppose these are different users with the different requirements. So whenever these users comes to this website on its very first GUI, or in simple terms I'll say whatever they see on the website, they see different information that they can fill out. Okay, so suppose these are the 4 users. So usually that information looks like this, like they have to enter like from where they want to travel, right? And from where they want to travel. Like suppose someone wants to travel from New Delhi to, let's say, New York. Okay, suppose I'm filling out this requirements from the user 1. Okay, there are some more information that they have to fill on this website or any booking website, like I told you, like they have to tell them on which date they want to travel, or let's say how many number of passengers are there, whether this round trip or let's say a single trip. Okay, so let's say the date is 12th June and number of passengers are 4. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that this is the information that is entered by the user on this website, on this booking engine, right? Now what this website do normally, I'll show you the practical scenario after showing this example. So what this website does after it, when it gets the user information, it sends this information to different vendors, right? Like Make My Trip send this information that Make My Trip have to sort out flights that are going from New Delhi to New York on this date with the 4 passengers, right? So it will send this particular information to some different vendors. Okay, so suppose these are my different vendors, and this arrow represents that this information that came from the user 1 is going to these different vendors. Okay, now what these vendors do, or actually what these vendors are, I'll tell you. These vendors are basically different airline website. Suppose this is the vendor 1, this is vendor 2, suppose it's AirAsia, this is Etihad, this is Fly Dubai, or some other website, right? So what these website or vendors now going to do with this information is that if they have any available flight from Delhi to New York on the 12th of June with the 4 passenger availability, they are going to send back a response, right? Like they got some information, they're going to send back some information. Okay, so suppose this is my vendor 1, and vendor 1 has the availability, so it will send back that information to the make my trip. Also, let's say vendor 3 also have this booking for these dates, so it will send back this information. So basically this was the information that went from the make my trip to these different vendors, and the vendors that has availability for this particular requirement will send back some information, and that information could be look like this, like with this information, right, including this in the response, it will include like the price, what will be the price, and the timings that they have the available flight with this price and with this timing, right? So this was the information that was sent by the make my trip to the different vendors, and this is the information that is coming from the vendor that has the availability. So this particular scenario, if I'll talk about a web service is, so basically whatever the exchange that is happening between these vendors and the make my trip is the work of an API, and this whole scenario of this exchanging information is known as a web service, right, where one party is generating a request. That make my trip is generating a request with this information that if this particular flights with this particular detail is available, please get back me a response, and the vendors that has the particular availability of the flight is sending a response, right? So a request is getting generated, a response is being formed, right? So this particular scenario is known as your web service. Okay, and how on the back end, how it is actually working on the back end, how this data is getting transmitted and going back and through is the work of an API. So basically in simple terms, I can say that on the front end whatever you're seeing is the GUI, but the processing that is getting done is done by the API or a web service. Okay, now the same example, if I'll show you, if I go to some website. Okay, so I'll go to a website, let's say the same website, makemytrip.com. If I'll open this website, you see the same information I'm seeing here, that I have to fill out information. So again, if I fill out information like I want to travel from New Delhi to, let's say, New York, I'll select all airports on, let's say, 6th of September, and okay, let's say I'm just selecting a one-way flight, right? Okay, and let's say number of passengers are 4. Okay, and now if I click on search, the same scenario will happen on the back end. Make my trip is going to build a request out of the information that I provided and will send it to different vendors, that means the different airlines, right? And whatever is the available, you'll see here, you see I'm seeing different airlines like the United Airlines, Etihad, Korean Airways, right? So these are the different airlines that has the availability for my requirement, so that's why they're sending me the response. Okay, so this is a typical or a very basic example of how web services work, right? So this is about a very basic example how these web services work. Now you must be thinking that why do we actually use these web services? Okay, so I'll tell you. So what happens is that with these web services or these APIs, works became very easy. Like if you want to book a airline, if these web services or API were not present, right? So you have to go to the individual website of these airlines and check out the price and do your permutation combination and see that what's the best deal. But with the help of these APIs, all the information you're getting at a one place. Okay, and if you want to understand it more better, if I'll talk about more practical example, you see there are some different websites over which when you log on when you try to sign up, like on the same website, like say Make My Trip, if I click on this sign up, you'll see either I can create a new account with my email, providing the phone number and the password, or what I can do is, I can directly use the API that is provided by the Facebook or with the Google Gmail. So if I click on here, what I can do is I don't have to sign up, again I have to enter all this information. I can use my existing Gmail account to sign up to the Make My Trip. So again, this is the work of web services or an API. So basically Google here is sharing their API, their login API with the Make My Trip. So the users don't have to create a new account. If they have an existing Gmail account or a Facebook account, they can directly sign it up. Right? So this is how web services makes our life easy. All these websites are sharing information with each other, right? And that is possible with the help of these web service or these backend APIs. Again, I'll tell you that whatever you're seeing here, right, this is the GUI of this website. Whatever information that I fill in this GUI and click on some function or an action, that processing will be done by an API. So I can simply say here that on the back end of every GUI there is an API. Okay, so I think this must be clear that what is an API or what is a GUI. Now next thing that we have to understand is that how we test these web services, or why we actually need to test these web services. Like an API is created already, right? But there can be some scenarios where a problem can generate, like a request is getting formed but the response that we are getting is not correct, like we are not getting the complete information, or response is not getting the exact values that should be there. So in those scenarios we have to actually test these web services, that whether our backend API is working correctly or not. Right, like the information that is going in the correct format or not, the response that we are getting is in the correct format or not. So all these things we have to test, right? And that testing is done through different tools, right? There are different tools that are present, like the SOAP UI or the Postman, and rest assured, about which we are going to study in this whole course. So I'll tell about I'll come to that in a while, but first you must be thinking that this is fine, that I'll show you this illustration that is understandable, right? Very basic. But how on the back end this encryption works, encryption of this request or the response. So what happens is that, for that again I'll show you an information. Just a second. Okay, so as you can see, these are two applications, or you can say different websites, or could be any two different platforms, right? We can say that. So they are communicating with each other. A request is getting generated, a response has been provided, right? So now with this web services, the platform that are communicating are independent of each other. Like one website, or you can say the one application, can be written in Java and other one can be in the PHP, right? Still it understands whatever the information that is getting passed by the other, right? So how this is possible? This is possible due to these different protocols or the architecture that support these web services. So basically we have a SOAP protocol and a REST architecture. Okay, so now as the name suggests, rest assured, so that doesn't really mean that you can just check out these REST based services. You can also check the SOAP based services also with the rest assured. But today in industry 90% of these APIs are written in the REST, or they are based on the REST APIs, right? Or you can say the REST architecture. So first I'll tell you about why they are in the they are not following the SOAP protocol, or what's the difference among these. But first let's understand what these the SOAP protocol or the REST architecture do for us. So basically what happens is that when these two websites communicates, they can be in different language, right? So there must be a state, this request and response should be in a manner that both of these understand. So that's why we use this protocol or this architecture, right? Which basically ensures that a secure flow is being followed, right? So basically this request and the response are in the form of XML or the JSON, okay, which is again our next topic. So if I come back to this example of make my trip, the request that is getting formed by the make my trip is in the form of, it can be following the REST architecture of the SOAP protocol, but the request will be actually written either in the form of XML or in the form of JSON. Okay, so now let's understand what is this XML or what is this JSON. So if I talk about an XML is nothing, just, I won't go to the technical jargon, but it's again a kind of language, right, which includes several tags. Like it starts with a header tag, right? Like there's this head tag, right? It starts. Then there is this body tag, and under that body tag you have your information. Like if I want to form a request for the same information that we are going here, like from to, so there will be a tag called from, right, which is going to have some information. I'll just remove all this information that where you have to go. So suppose you want to travel from New Delhi to, so this tag will end right here, and there will be a tag or to, like from where you want to go. So you want to go to the New York. What I'm trying to make you understand here, or what I'm showing you here, is that the same information that I show you, how that request actually looks like in the XML form. So this is how that XML looks like. So the more information, like we have to pass dates, so again we have going to have another tag like the date, like 12th September. Okay, so you must be noticing whatever tag that I'm starting, I have to end it, right, which is a double work itself, that whatever tag you're starting, you have to end it, and between that you'll pass the information, the actual information, right? So again I have to end this body tag. I'll show you a very basic example of these, how this request looks like. So suppose this is your request XML, okay. In same way, when this this XML will go from the make my trip to the different vendors, the vendors that has the availability will send back a response. Again that response will be in the form of XML, and that that XML is going to have some different tags for different information. So basically this is the response XML, right? So if this information is going in the response from to, you're going to get with the date, and you're also going to see another tag, let's say the price. Okay, so let's say we get this price also. Okay, so this is how your response XML will look like. Okay, so now from this point, one thing more that you should know is that these APIs or these web services doesn't really have any UI. They are work on the backend. You are not going to see anything on the backend. The information goes and comes back in these formats, right? And these information again follow some protocol or the architecture. It can be either SOAP or the REST. Within the SOAP, only the XMLs are accepted, right? I didn't talk about the JSON, and I also told you about one thing before telling you this, that 90% of these API that are present over the internet or being used by different industries uses the REST. So the main reason among that is this, that within the SOAP you can't use the JSON, right? So now you must be thinking that what is that advantage that we get out of the JSON that XML doesn't have, right? Or you can say that what is the advantage the REST has that SOAP doesn't have. And for your information, the REST also support these XMLs, right? Like, I'll just write it out here. So basically, using the SOAP protocol, the communication between two vendors can happen in the form of XMLs only, whereas in the REST, it supports XML as well as your JSONs. So, and now I'll come to this is the one of the reason, you know, that REST is so much popular, due to the support of the JSON language. So again, JSON is another language like the XML, but it's much more flexible than the XML. Like, you don't have to use extra information, extra tags like the starting, ending tag, nothing. You don't have to use nothing. It's plain simple. It's just like a native English language. Although it's not native English, but still, you know, it's very much understandable, easier to create. You know, much more flexible like this. So I'll show you the example. Like, if the same request, if I write in the form of JSON, how it's going to look like, that will give you clarity. So if the same request I'll write in the form of JSON, right? Suppose now we are following the REST architecture, not the SOAP. Okay, so the same request is going to look something like this. Suppose this is the request, this time request JSON. Okay, so JSON is going to look like this. You don't have to, you know, start it with the header tag or with the body tag, nothing. All you have to do is you have to create a key and provide it a value. So suppose this was my information, right? Like, from, to, date, passenger, and these are the values like New Delhi, New York, date, and the number of passengers. So here, whatever you're seeing on the left side is your key, and everything that is, you know, exactly coming after that is its value. So I have to create 4 keys, like from, okay, its value, the value is, let's say, New Delhi. Then you have another key called to, which again has a value, let's say New York. Okay, and there is this another tag called date, which has this value, right? And the last one, okay, this is much, that's enough. Okay, so this was your, you know, request XML supported by the SOAP protocol, and this is your request JSON followed by the REST architecture. So from, you know, itself, I took a very basic example, you know, to give you clarity, but you can see, you know, how easier it is to write a JSON than an XML. So that is the, you know, prime reason why the REST is being much popular than the SOAP protocol. Also, there are, you know, some more differences between this encryption features and the security that these protocol and this architecture uses. Except these, you know, why REST or the JSON is called, you know, much more flexible is that SOAP is basically a protocol. Right? A protocol is something, you know, that follows some set of rules, whereas REST is an architecture. You don't really have, you know, this hard-coded rule. You get much more flexibility. Right now, you know, we are taking this very basic example, so it's really hard to explain, you know, that how, you know, what are those set of rules. But with the passage of time within this course, you're going to get it. But this is the, you know, very basic difference among these. Like, it's SOAP is a protocol that uses some, you know, steps, hard-coded steps that you have to follow, but that doesn't the case with the JSON of the REST. It's very flexible, easier to write, easier to understand, right? And provided the same level of security that the SOAP protocol has. So that's why the REST is used more than the SOAP. Okay, so I hope now you get the basic idea about what is an XML, what is a JSON, right? What is the difference among a SOAP protocol or a REST architecture. Okay, so now coming back to the main topic of this lecture again, about the different tools, right, that are being used for the testing these web services. Right, so we have the rest assured, we have the SOAP-UI, and we also have the Postman. We are going to work with the Postman also within the next module. I come to that. But with the Postman, we can't really do the automation testing, right? Like most of the people who are in the testing world already know that we can do this manual testing from all of these tools, like from the SOAP-UI, from the rest assured, from the Postman, right? But we all want to learn the automation. So basically from the Postman we can't really do the automation. From the SOAP-UI we can do the automation, but it's a bit of a complicated process. Like if you're working with the with only the SOAP-UI, right? There are basically two versions of SOAP-UI. So there's the SOAP-UI free version, and another one is a ready API. Okay, or also known as the SOAP-UI Pro, which comes with a heavy monthly fee that you have to pay if you want to use it, which has all the features, right, of the automation from the end to end. But with the free version you don't have that. Still, it's possible to do the automation by the free version, while integrating it with the Java Eclipse and all. But still, it's a bit of a hassle to do that. But with the rest assured, it's completely open source free tool. You can do the automation, you can do the every bits of the testing of an API with the rest assured without paying anything, right? All you have to need to learn is how you work with the Java, right? If you have basic understanding of how Java works, then you're good to go with the rest assured, right? So basically, rest assured are some libraries, Java libraries, right? A very powerful one that is used for the testing of this web services, right? So that's the main reason that why the rest assured is being used. And if you are very much sound with the programming, with the Java programming, you're very good to go with the rest assured. Like if I really talk about the advantage of using SOAP-UI, so basically SOAP-UI has an user interface. This has a user interface, but with the rest assured we don't really get any user interface. These are just some libraries that will get inside the Eclipse and start are building up a request, start the coding part. Okay, but it's much more flexible and efficient to use it than the SOAP-UI. It has much more features than this, right? It works faster than it. This is the latest one. Okay, SOAP-UI is quite old now. Okay, so before beginning with this the rest assured tool, we should have understanding about the other tools. About the Postman, Postman is tool, like I told you, that you can only do the manual testing. That will see. Before jumping to the automation, the rest assured, we'll see the manual aspect of this, how we can manually test these applications, test these APIs. Now, one thing that I want to tell you now before beginning with this, in this session only, that how we are actually going to learn this API testing. So first of all, in order to learn this API testing, we should have some handy API with us, because on those APIs we'll perform testing scenarios. We'll see different features of the rest assured and all. So for that we are going to use an application that is known as the student application, as well as some other application that or the APIs that we'll use, like the student app. We'll use this retail app, and we're also going to work with the APIs from the Walmart, right? APIs from the Twitter or Facebook, and also from the PayPal. So all these APIs you are going to see within this course. With the rest assured itself, will test different requests. Okay, so all of these we are going to cover, but initially I'm going to just start with the student app. Okay, so first of all, we'll see how manually this student application work, how this manual testing work of an API. So for that we have to first of all have to install the Postman on our systems. Okay, free tool. All you have to do is go to the Google and just search for the Postman. Okay, here we go. So this is the website getpostman.com. You don't have to go to this enterprise and all solutions, right? Just click on this download app and the free version will start getting downloaded. Okay. Okay. According to your operating system, whatever you're using, how many bits of the system that you have. So I have this window, so I have downloaded this version. Just download it and install it, as simple as it is. Okay. And you'll see this window. After this, I'll provide you with this application called the student application, which is a very basic API. With this session, we are not going to actually start with it. So about its installation part, so when you'll download this code, I'll provide you the file. When you'll download the student app, you don't have to do anything about it. You just download it, put it in a location, and from the CMD itself, it's going to be a Java application, right? We built it in the Spring, so all you have to go to that location and just you have to type a command and the application will start on the back end. Okay, we'll see that in the next session, how we are going to send that request and do a manual test using the Postman in the next session. But I'll tell you about the student app, right, what it can do. So basically, within the student app we have some different features present, right? Like with the student app, you can it has a list of students, right? On the back end it has a list of students. You can add a new student to it, you can delete a student, right? Or you can delete a student, and or you can say you can update a student information. Student has an information like its ID, its name, last name, the courses it opted for, like, so a very basic application which has a very basic features, right? So all of these scenarios we are going to test it, okay, within the next session. So before the next session, just install the Postman on your system, right, and get the student app ready at a location, preferably on your desktop, right? And we'll see the manual aspect of this, that how this request works. Also, all the applications that we are going to work with, like the retail app and the student app and these all are works with the REST. These are REST-based application and uses the JSON. Okay, so all the information like the first name, last name, all will be in the JSON format. Okay.